Thank you, thank you. And it is an absolute honor to be here. First, County Executive Pittman, bless you and thank you. I can't tell you enough how honored I am by our friendship, how inspired I am by your leadership, and I know that I am going to work tirelessly, as all of us are, to make sure that I will have the opportunity to work with you for another 4 years. Bless you and thank you for all you continue to do. And to all of our awardees tonight, this is Black excellence. This is Black excellence. And I'm inspired to be in front of them. I'm inspired to be with each and every one of you. You know, for so many of you, I call you friend. And for each and every one of you, I'm a person who would follow you anywhere. And I know all of our lives have been better because of you. So congratulations for making Black history every single day and for your awards tonight. To our wonderful and our gracious hosts, Wayne and Patricia Frazier. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership, not just of just the Maryland Washington Minority Company Association, but also for continuing to lift up a cause that is just, a cause that is right, and supporting so many of our entrepreneurs who, if just given the opportunity to compete, they win. And your leadership in that matters deeply. And also I say to our other hosts, to the Cordish companies and my dear brother Reed, this is the 9th year of this event and the 9th year that you hosted it. We're talking about a company that was the first in the nation to construct a major casino and to have a minority-owned firm as the GC. First time in history. So bless you and thank you. And I'm excited to be here surrounded also by friends, and also I'd be remiss if I also didn't acknowledge the person who is going to be not just the next Lieutenant Governor of the state of Maryland, but the most consequential in the history of this state, Delegate Aruna Miller. It's extraordinary. I'm excited to be here with so many people also who just share our vision for what this state could actually be. Because I am a third-generation Marylander. This is where I was born. This is where I came of age. This is where I built my career. This is where I fell in love with that beautiful woman right there, Dawn Moore. This is where we are raising our children. And I know that I'm not just here amongst friends. I'm here amongst people whose shoulders that I stand on. Because the reality is I can see higher because each and every one of you have allowed it to be so. The one thing I'm very clear about is where I've come from. And we cannot forget the history and the sacrifices that have been made in our lives in order to make our journeys even real. My grandfather was the first one on my mom's side of the family born in this country. And he was born here, and he was the son of a very vocal minister. A minister who did not just teach the word of God, but he reminded people to act it out here on earth as well. And eventually he was so vocal that they started receiving threats. And when my grandfather was just a toddler, it was the Ku Klux Klan that ran them out of this country. Where in the middle of the night, my great-grandfather picked up his family and they left. And they went to Jamaica. The majority of my family never returned to this country. The majority of my family said that they would never come back to a place that inspired so much pain. But my grandfather did. My grandfather spent his entire life here. My grandfather eventually came back to this country, went to a HBCU, eventually became the first black minister in the history of the Dutch Reformed Church, following in his father's footsteps and becoming a minister. My grandfather devoted his entire life to God community, and family. He did everything right. And when my grandfather passed away while I was in Afghanistan, he had nothing to pass down to his children and grandchildren. I've spent my entire career trying to build the kind of world that he fought for and the kind of world that he deserved. And I wish the story of my grandfather was surprising. I wish it was rare. But instead, it embodies the exhausting legacy of the Black experience in this country and in this state. A tortured legacy of how hard it is to obtain a measure of financial independence, how hard it is to accumulate wealth, to just own more than you owe, and to simply have the ability to pass something on to your children besides debt. I would not be here had it not been for my grandfather. All the work that I have done as an entrepreneur, all the work that I've done as a chief executive, as a public servant, is built on the foundation that he laid for me. And now, as the grandson of a child who was chased off by the Ku Klux Klan, we now have the opportunity to become the first Black governor in the history of the state of Maryland. But that's why the message of today is so important, because the beauty of all the honorees that we've seen here today, the beauty of each and every one of these businesses and these entrepreneurs that we celebrate today, that tonight is just not simply a celebration of your success. It's also an understanding and addressing why your success has been so hard fought. It's addressing the fact that economic independence and economic growth should not have to be so hard. That's why the North Star and my vision is that we are going to focus on work, wages, and wealth for every single family inside of this state. If we are not talking about economic opportunities, then I don't know what we're talking about. The North Stars are work, wages, and wealth. We know how hard it is to build a small business here in Maryland. We know how hard it is to be Black and to build a small business here in Maryland. And it shouldn't have to be this hard. As a leader, I am data-driven and heart-led, and here's the data. Here are the facts. Under Maryland's Minority Business Enterprise Program, we have a 29% procurement goal. Last year, the state of Maryland did 14% that went out to MBEs. That's the lowest rate that we have seen in 11 years. And by the way, since we've had that goal of 29%, we've never hit it as a state. The benchmark has been rendered absolutely meaningless. That 29 number means absolutely nothing, because those in positions of authority, agency heads, Board of Public Works, they've refused to enforce it. The disproportionate difficulty that you face in getting state business is a deliberate outcome of programs and policies. There's a reason that it's so much easier to get business on the federal level than it is on the state level when you're looking at things like 8A, because that's opened up incredible opportunities. That's intentional. Here in Maryland, the state regularly undermines its own procurement growth and procurement goals with waivers. That's intentional. The state does not monitor nor enforce compliance over its procurement goals. That is intentional. Playing favorites and awarding incumbents the same business contracts, that's intentional. It doesn't have to be this way. The people who currently hold the purse strings have had 8 years to care. Some have had decades. If they cared, the votes would look different. The policies would look different. And the outcomes would be different. This work is not new to me. I work with Speaker Adrienne Jones on her groundbreaking Black agenda that entered into legislation last year. I work with my dear friend, Senator Antonio Hayes, who I'm proud to sit with tonight and proud to follow him anywhere he goes as well, on a groundbreaking piece of legislation that dealt with fair appraisal value in historically redlined neighborhoods. I've built effective and diverse teams throughout my entire career. When I built a small business here in Maryland, and after we had a successful acquisition in 2017, my hand-picked successor was a Black woman. When I led one of the nation's largest anti-poverty organizations, I inherited a C-suite that was entirely white. One of the largest anti-poverty organizations in America, I inherited a C-suite that was entirely white. 4 years later, when I stepped down as CEO, we were over 50% people of color in the C-suite, over 70% women. And our diverse leadership team ushered in some of the strongest fundraising in the organization's 30-year history. We replenished our strategic reserves. We expanded our impact to record levels, hence proving the fact that being inclusive and being effective do not have to be mutually exclusive. That both of those two things work together. And so in this moment, we know, and our goal, and when I'm governor, that we are going to build an administration that actually looks like the state of Maryland. From cabinet heads to agency heads, and knowing that each and every one of you are going to have a seat at the table. That we will grow, and I will insist that we grow. But we're going to grow equitably. That we are going to build, and trust me, Aruna and I will demand that we are going to build. But we're going to build collectively. We will rebuild our K-12 education system to be cradle to career and teach our young people about finances and entrepreneurship so they know not just how to be employees, but how to be employers. We will make historic investments in our apprenticeship programs and our trade programs, starting as early as middle school and high school, to ensure that our young people have a variety of pathways to get to economic mobility. We're going to invest in our HBCUs and actually create incubators of entrepreneurship for all of our HBCUs throughout the state. We are going to address the challenges that Marylanders of color face in getting access to capital, headed by the state level, and making sure that funding is available and providing wraparound supports and setting businesses up to succeed. Hold on, there's more. There's more. We're going to make it easier for these businesses to be able to compete and win state business. We will break down the burdensome regulations and reform our procurement process in a way that creates opportunity and doesn't impede them. We are going to streamline forecasting from state agencies so businesses can plan appropriately and know what projects and opportunities are actually on the horizon. And we will work with localities so that small and minority-owned businesses can piggyback on contracts. This is not rocket science, but it does require commitment and it does require leadership from the top to dig in and actually tackle these issues head on. And so in closing, I've had a chance to lead across sectors and had a chance to make bold things happen, whether it was running a successful small business or leading one of the largest anti-poverty organizations in this country. But before that, I was a soldier. And there's something that we learned when I was leading soldiers. And that line was this: if you want different, do different. If you want different, do different. We can't change the results by taking the same old approach. We're never going to do different if we're electing people who will only pay lip service to these issues when it's politically expedient. We're never going to do different if we're just electing people who are passionately telling us how they're going to fix the system without acknowledging that their fingerprints are all over the system that needs fixing. If we want to do different and make our state both more competitive, and we are going to be more competitive. Listen, I am competitive by nature. I'm very competitive. And we are not going to lose to Virginia or Pennsylvania or Delaware or nowhere else. The assets in this state are better than anywhere else in this country. The problem is we are asset rich and strategy poor. But we are going to be more competitive and be more equitable. And that does not have to be a binary conversation. In fact, to do one, you need to do the other. You cannot be more competitive if you're not more equitable. You cannot be more equitable if you're not more competitive. Now is the time for us to move fearlessly into the future, without restrictions and without barriers. Barriers around what contracts you can compete for, barriers around what businesses you can start, barriers around where you can live, barriers around what offices you can hold. We have an opportunity to live fearlessly. And we can build the kind of state that our ancestors hoped for and that our children deserve. Together, we can do different. And together, we can be better. Bless you all, and thank you so much for having me here this evening.